Rome's money was trusted across an empire. A silver coin minted in one province could be accepted hundreds of miles away by merchants, soldiers, and farmers who had never met each other. Across vast distances, people conducted business with confidence because they believed Roman currency would hold its value. For generations, this trust helped support trade across one of the largest empires in history. Yet over time, something changed. The coin still carried the image of the emperor and looked similar to earlier versions, but the amount of silver inside them gradually declined. The government was producing more money without acquiring an equivalent amount of precious metal. At first, few people noticed. Later, the consequences became much harder to ignore. This is the story of how Rome altered its currency, why it made that decision, and what happened when confidence in the value of money began to weaken. To understand the problem, we first need to understand how Roman money worked. The Roman Empire connected vast territories across Europe, North Africa, and parts of the Middle East. Goods moved through extensive trade networks linking cities, ports, and frontier regions. Grain from Egypt helped feed major urban centers. Wine, olive oil, metals, pottery, and textiles crossed the Mediterranean in enormous quantities. Traders traveled along Roman roads and sea routes that connected distant communities into a single economic system. One of Rome's most important coins was the denarius, a silver coin that became widely accepted throughout the empire. Because it contained a substantial amount of silver, people generally trusted its value. Merchants accepted it in trade, soldiers received it as payment, and governments collected taxes with it. The denarius became far more than a piece of metal. It became a symbol of economic stability. However, maintaining a large empire was expensive. Rome needed roads, bridges, ports, administrators, public buildings, and above all, a powerful military. Legions stationed across thousands of miles of frontier required regular pay, equipment, food, and supplies. Defending borders against external threats demanded enormous resources year after year. As time passed, political instability created additional pressure. Some periods saw civil wars, rapid changes in leadership, and intense competition for military loyalty. Emperors often needed money quickly to secure support and maintain authority. At the same time, silver was a limited resource. Mines could not always provide enough precious metal to meet growing government expenses. Roman leaders faced a difficult challenge. How could they pay increasing costs when the supply of silver was not keeping pace? The solution many rulers adopted was coin debasement. Debasement occurs when the precious metal content of a coin is reduced, while the coin continues to circulate at roughly the same official value. Imagine having enough silver to create 100 coins. If each coin contains slightly less silver, the same amount of metal can produce more than 100 coins. From the government's perspective, this seemed like an attractive solution. Additional currency could be created without discovering new silver mines or increasing taxes immediately. Roman authorities gradually reduced the silver content of their coins over many decades. The process was slow enough that most people did not notice it at first, but over time, the cumulative effect became dramatic. Coins that once contained a high percentage of silver eventually contained only a fraction of the precious metal found in earlier versions. Initially, debasement may have appeared successful. The government could pay soldiers, fund military campaigns, and meet financial obligations more easily. The empire continued functioning, and daily life carried on. But economies do not operate solely on government decisions. People respond to incentives. Merchants, traders, and ordinary citizens eventually realized that newer coins contained less silver than older ones. If two coins looked similar but one contained significantly more precious metal, many people preferred saving the higher quality coin and spending the lower quality one. Others demanded more coins in exchange for the same goods. Gradually, confidence in the currency began to weaken. The problem was not simply the metal itself. The problem was trust. During parts of the 3rd century, inflation became a growing concern throughout the Roman Empire. Inflation occurs when money loses purchasing power, meaning more currency is required to buy the same goods and services. Historians continue to debate the exact role debasement played, but many agree it contributed to monetary instability. As more debased coins entered circulation, prices increased and uncertainty spread. Businesses found it harder to predict costs. Workers needed more money to maintain their standard of living. Trade became less predictable. Economic confidence, once taken for granted, became increasingly fragile. The government attempted various solutions. One of the most famous came under Emperor Diocletian in the early 4th century. Concerned about rising prices, he issued the Edict on Maximum Prices, a decree that established legal price limits on hundreds of goods and services across the empire. The goal was straightforward: stop prices from rising and restore stability. But enforcing such rules across a massive empire proved extremely difficult. Local conditions varied greatly, and merchants often found ways around the restrictions. The policy achieved only limited success and failed to solve the deeper problems affecting the monetary system. It is important not to oversimplify Rome's challenges. Coin debasement was not the sole cause of the empire's difficulties. Rome also faced invasions, civil conflicts, political instability, population pressures, administrative burdens, and disruptions to trade. These factors interacted with one another over long periods of time. Economic problems rarely have a single cause, and the Roman experience was no exception. Debasement formed one chapter in a much larger story involving politics, warfare, resources, and the challenges of governing a vast empire. Even so, the story remains relevant because it highlights an important lesson about money. Whether a currency consists of silver coins, paper notes, or digital balances, its usefulness depends heavily on confidence. People accept money because they believe others will accept it as well. That shared belief allows trade, investment, and economic activity to function smoothly. When confidence weakens, uncertainty grows. Rebuilding trust is often far more difficult than maintaining it in the first place. That brings us back to the question we began with. Rome's money was trusted across an empire. Then something changed. The silver content of its coins gradually declined as governments struggled to meet growing financial demands. What seemed like a practical short-term solution created longer-term challenges that affected merchants, soldiers, taxpayers, and ordinary citizens throughout the empire. The story of Roman debasement is not simply about ancient coins. It is a reminder that money derives much of its value from trust, and that trust, once weakened, can have consequences that extend far beyond the coins themselves.